The Sci Fi Show talks about sci-fi. Who knew, right?
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm just an everyman, and for as long as I can remember, I've loved science fiction. Science fiction books, science fiction toys, science fiction TV, science fiction movies, all of it. Join me and my friends as we explore the many facets of science fiction. This is the Sci Fi Show.
Hey, it's Josh, and if you've got a brown coat in your closet, you're among friends. We're going to join Drew in just a moment, but right now it's news. The Henry Cavill-led Highlander project has found a new home at Amazon MGM Studios. It's Highlander, so I'm excited. And with Cavill, how can you go wrong, right? New trailers this week include Fantastic Four: First Steps. How many people think this one might actually get it right? Well, it looks kind of fantastic. 28 years later picks up with the world almost 3 decades after the first infected plagued the Earth. With Ralph Fiennes, it releases in June. Ryan Gosling's 2027 Star Wars movie has a name. This new film, officially announced at Star Wars Celebration Tokyo this week, features an all-new cast and takes place about 5 years after the rise of Skywalker. A new Pacific Rim series has landed at Amazon with Legendary Pictures and Eric Heiserer at the helm. The Pacific Rim franchise has spawned 2 movies, a cartoon series, comic books, novels, and toys. And boy, I am excited. Hang on tight. This week we continue with Drew, but it's not Star Trek we're going to be talking about. Here we go.
It is Easter weekend.
Yes.
And I am very involved with church-related things, and so
we are both.
We are both related. Yeah,
so.
Very involved with church-related stuff, and so this is a very busy weekend. If you have been following along from last week, you might have expected the second half of a Star Trek: The Motion Picture thing, but I've not had a chance to talk or look or prepare or do anything about that. But I have had a chance to watch a few of these trailers. And I've also had a chance to sort of ruminate on the nature of storytelling. This is going to be a very macro sort of an episode where we're zooming out past what is sci-fi, what is fantasy, even really beyond what is story. I really want to talk about why it is we tell stories. Storytelling is an inherently, and as far as we know, exclusively human proclivity.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. Maybe aliens also. I mean, I would imagine that any being capable of space travel is a being that is capable of telling stories. Because otherwise, why explore?
Right.
But so it's an inherently and exclusively human trait, as far as we know. The sort of desire, the yearning to communicate things that are not purely informational. So you have the bees that are using really kind of sophisticated communication, but it's, what are they telling? They're telling this is where the flowers are, and this is how far, and this is how you have to get there. It's like purely informational.
So it's an impetus that is it's intertwined with their own being.
It's intertwined with their own being, and it is a necessary thing for survival for them to find food. So they're communicating information for survival. And humans tell stories for very much the same reason. We are communicating for survival because the stories that we tell help us to navigate our world in a lot of different ways. And it's not even just that. We tell the same stories over and over. People who have studied theater or filmmaking perhaps are aware of the of sort of the I think it's 7 basic conflicts or 7 basic stories, which I am not going to list right now. Even people who've taken an English class or a basic theater class are probably aware of conflicts such as man versus man, man versus self, man versus God, man versus nature, man versus society. These are all basic conflicts that happen in stories. And I say man as in humankind. And we also know that there are these sort of archetypal stories of, journey and return, of conquest. I don't remember all of them. Anyway, we tell these same stories, and we tell them over and over again. We use different characters, we use different settings, we use different tropes, different things that a given society can identify with. But it's the same story. And this is why I take issue with folks who say, oh, Hollywood's out of ideas. We're looking at a trailer for Fantastic Four, which has been made as recently as 2015, you said?
Yeah.
Was the last one we made?
Yeah, it was the last one.
Again here 10 years later.
10 years later.
We're trying to tell this same story, and people get, I can't, why is Hollywood out of ideas? Well, Hollywood, you could argue, has never had an original idea since its inception, because we're still telling the same stories. We're still telling. I just finished the first season of Chaos on Netflix, which is an absolutely great setting, in my opinion, of the of not just sort of an overview of the relationship of the gods of Olympus, but it's also the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Told in very modern times.
Right.
I'm also a bit of a Broadway nerd. There's been a recent. Oh yeah. Oh, this is my problem. Is like I feel like I'm a nerd about nerd stuff. Like I nerd out on nerd stuff, but not any one nerd thing that I can get completely deep into the lore on. And so I'm a very what might you might regard me as a very surface level nerd.
Equal opportunity nerd.
Equal opportunity nerd.
There you
go. I'm a nerd about nerding out on stuff. And being ADD, that means that I'm really just, I'm a stone skimming the water. Just skip. Anyway, Hadestown is where I'm getting with this. Hadestown is a Broadway show that came out in, I don't know, some year. It's not an old show. It's a very modern show that takes the story of Orpheus and Eurydice to sort of a New Orleans vibe.
Yes.
With like heavy industrialization. It's an amazing, oh my gosh. If you're into Broadway, it's a really wonderful cast.
It's amazing. It's 2006.
2006, yeah.
And it was an 8-time Tony Award winning musical. And it's absolutely beautiful. I remember seeing some set pieces and songs from one of the Tony Awards at one point. There's this huge swinging thing that they were doing the entire song on. It was like a pendulum that was just ridiculous. Kind
of maybe a ticking clock kind of a situation. Maybe? Yeah, because it has to do with, so the myth of Hades and Persephone plays into this. Orpheus is trying to rescue Eurydice from the underworld. And not to get too much into it. And I also bring it up because they are getting ready. They've had a Hadestown revival happening on the West End, and there are plans in place to film the original cast on West End and release that. And I'm so here for it.
Oh wow, that's going to be amazing.
It is going to be amazing. But going back, Orpheus and Eurydice has been told. It was one of the first operas ever composed. It's an old story. It's an old song, as the soundtrack will tell you. Why do we keep telling it? And I don't have an answer to that question, not one that satisfies me anyway, but we know it's important. Yeah. We know it's important to tell this story, which doesn't obviously speak to any sort of survival type lesson that we can learn, but in a way it talks about how we can survive through stories either that we don't know the end of yet or that we know end in tragedy.
Right.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
It's about how, we tell stories to help us navigate through this uncharted thing that we're calling life. And I'm going to spin this back into the 28 years later trailer.
Right.
Because here we are. Obviously, it's 28 years later. I love this minimalist concept of